The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've read the new Jed MacKay Avengers. He's a new writer on the Avengers, following up from Jason Aaron's run, and I like it. I like it a lot better than the previous run. And I was trying to kind of wrap my head around why. Now I've talked about this in the past. And I won't go into it, all over again. But one of the issues I had with Jason Aaron's run on the Avengers, and I'll start by saying, I Jason Aaron's hit or miss for me. I really like his work on Sculpt. I've liked a lot of his indie stuff, for that matter. I liked parts of his Thor run. I've liked parts of his his X-Men run, although it's very hit and miss. I think his Punisher recent thing he did was pretty dreadful. But if I'm being fair, the Punisher has a long track record of the most baffling, stupid takes that you've seen. You know, you've had Punisher as a reincarnated angel shooting angel bullets. You've had the Punisher randomly mowing down jaywalkers. You've had the Punisher turning black and tricking Luke Cage. You've had the Punisher cut into pieces and then reanimated as Frankencastle. Like you've had the wildest takes on the Punisher, and I think Jason Aaron's take was bad. But he's in good company. There's a lot of people. I still don't get it because I don't think it's that hard to write the Punisher. I think Garth Ennis and many others kind of managed to figure it out. Super easy, fairly an inconvenience. But there's this. I don't know. Jason Aaron. Maybe I've come to the conclusion that he just needs a really good editor or somebody to go, all right, no, we're not going to do this. No, because the problem with the Avengers is that even things that were set up, I think, fairly well early in the run, like Namor and kind of a new threat from Atlantis and stuff with the Squadron Supreme and even the stuff with the vampires in Chernobyl and kind of these different plot points. When they finally kind of rolled out and came to a head in the comic, they did so in the most batshit way possible, like in a really unpleasant, bad way. The Squadron Supreme storyline getting wrapped up in in the Heroes Reborn non-sequel was all the stories had the impression of, I can't believe they're letting me do this. That's how it felt. It didn't feel like it had cohesion. It didn't feel like any of this stuff was really connected together. And as a result, it didn't feel like there was any kind of big stakes in the comic. It just was like, here's something fucking crazy. And now here's another thing. And here's She-Hulk, and we're doing World War She-Hulk. And now we're doing a complete, alt reality Heroes Reborn kind of thing with the Squadron Supreme, who are run by Mephisto. And now we've got the multiversal Avengers of Evil, and they're doing stuff. And there's thousands of Mephistos across the multiverse that are doing shit. And then Loki's the original Avenger somehow. And now we've got, the Moon Knight has taken over the planet and made pyramids in New York. And over here we've got a Phoenix tournament, and the Phoenix is actually Thor's mom. And it's like it's like, what the fuck? At some point, it stops reading like a kind of sequential comic and reads like just a bunch of kind of random stunts. My view of that Avengers run was like a kid playing with action figures at the age of like 4 to 5, and just like, today Captain America can fly. Why? I don't fucking know, but why not? That's what the kid wants to do. It's just smashing toys together. By contrast, this new issue of the Avengers for me, it just, even though they're big threats, Terminus is there and he feels a little bit more threatening than he has in recent years. There's a subplot that's going to become the main plot with Kang, and you get the feeling like there's definitely big things going on. It's not like the Avengers are doing street level crime, but it also feels like there's a point to it, or there's a thread you can follow, or it doesn't feel like it's stunt writing, I guess is the best way to put it. And so that's an improvement. Well, let's see what this reader says. It says, hey, Perch, I was reading Jed MacKay's Avengers issues, pretty solid book, and I noticed that every single member of the team had a solo book currently or coming in the future, with the exception of Vision. That's true, and I don't necessarily think that's bad, by the way. I think if the Avengers as a Marvel comic are meant to be kind of the best of the best coming together to face a threat like never before, then that makes sense that they've got the kind of paragons of comics. Anyway, I like a lot of characters in the cast, but I feel like it'd be better to use characters who don't have their own solo books. Marvel and DC have a lot of interesting characters who we barely ever see because they can't carry a solo book. I understand an Avengers lineup needs Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, but any of the other spots should go to characters without a solo book. Why not Monica Rambeau instead of Captain Marvel, or Hawkeye instead of Black Panther? For the Justice League, I think you need to represent the Big Seven, not just the Trinity, but you could massively expand the team's lineup, like the Legion of Superheroes, to include characters who don't have a solo book. In fairness, they have done that in the past. I guess my question is, should team books mainly use characters who already have solo books? Good question, and curious what the people, what the viewers say. I mean, my answer is generally, I'd rather see a team book of people who do not have solo books. I for the reasons you stated, I think there's a lot of great heroes out there, and I'd like to see everybody get some chances. And a team book of a bunch of characters that come together and form a cohesive unit as a good story is fun. Whether it's the X-Men, because a lot of them cannot carry a solo book, as we've seen, or Teen Titans, or the Doom Patrol, or any other thing. I think that there's a world there of doing that. It's like pro wrestling with factions. You take a couple of wrestlers who weren't the biggest stars, you put them in a clique or a faction or a stable together, and you get bigger things. But if we're keeping with the pro wrestling analogy, you also have moments where you have like the Four Horsemen or the NWO, where you do take the biggest of the biggest and you have super team. And I don't think that's wrong. And I think, quite frankly, the Justice League and the Avengers are that is what that's the equivalent in comics. So I think the Avengers having a lot of characters who have their own solo books is fine, because it does represent kind of the best in the world coming together to fight a threat like no other. And I think that works. However, like you said, I think both with the Justice League and the Avengers, you can place in there like 2 or 3 characters who you're hoping to grow and get exposure for. And the goal should be you get exposure, they become fan favorites, and then, off they go into a solo book. That would be a good way to do it. Again, it's very much like pro wrestling. It's very much like you get a couple big wrestlers and you put a more junior wrestler in there that you want to get exposure for, and some of that heat rubs off on the new character, and then before long you've got a wrestler who can do main events that you didn't have before, and that's and draws money. That's the goal. So I think that same thing should happen with comics. I don't mind, again, the Avengers lineup, the Justice League lineup being comprised of the biggest of the biggest. I actually give Bendis some credit. I think when he was doing the Avengers and the New Avengers, there's a point where he kind of stated this a little bit by putting Wolverine and Spider-Man on the team. And, typically, historically, they'd kept the Spider-Man universe, the X-Men universe, and the Avenger universe in their own little playgrounds. But if the Avengers were meant to represent the biggest heroes in the world and kind of the face of superheroing, then it makes sense to actually have, the most popular characters all in one team. And I think that wasn't, you don't want to do that constantly, but I think it's, it's logical to at least put it this way, that's what the fans are thinking. That's what the customers are thinking. So it makes sense to kind of tip your hat to that line of thinking every now and then. That's I think appropriate and good. So, that's my take on it. I think that one thing that I think Marvel needs is more team books, quite frankly, because I think, they've got the X team books, you've got your X-Force and X-Men, and you've got kind of this menagerie of titles there. I think the Marvel needs a Defenders title, quite frankly. I think that'd be smart for them to do. I think that it's probably missing some other team book. Whether it's I wouldn't be opposed and wouldn't think it would be a bad idea to recreate the West Coast Avengers as a concept. Whatever it might be, and that could also be a place where you kind of have a sub team or coming up team. I don't know. So I guess my question is out to you. What do you want to see? So are you like the writer here, where you would prefer the team books be primarily comprised of characters who don't have their own solo books, Or what do you think about this whole dynamic? How do you feel about that structure of the Avengers and the Justice League? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. Where are the friends that you're not telling? Hey, we passed 40,000 subs somehow for no fucking reason. That's awesome. Anyway, there you have it. Thanks for listening.
But I'm a creep.